Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. And the Jazz, the tank is over. They've started winning. And they started by winning a coin flip. How about that? The Jazz, there was a coin flip because the Jazz and Kings finished with the same record. So the Jazz win the coin flip. They're going to be in front of the Kings in the draft order. They're guaranteed a top 8 pick. There's now a 0% chance that they can lose the pick. Aha! So there's that. And then, is that a sign that their luck is turning? Better times are coming. I mean, San Antonio's gotten lucky in the draft multiple times. They've drafted 1, 2, and 4. They just keep moving up in the lottery. And they get great players with them. The Jazz could have given themselves a chance at Wembanyama if they hadn't been so focused on the All-Star game and making Lowry an All-Star and having an All-Star while they hosted. That took them out of the running for Victor Wembanyama pretty much. But maybe it'll work out this year. Maybe A.J. DeBonce is looming. I'm pretty sure he'd be the top pick. I guess you never know, but pretty sure he'd be the top pick. So we'll see. It's May 10th. We'll find out the draft lottery. Circle that on your calendar. Spring football is coming to a close. How about Bronco Mendenhall recapping the spring for the Utah State Aggies? Are getting ready to move into the Pac-12. Bronco having to turn the team over again because the transfer portal is just crazy, especially when you sit where Utah State sits. You know, there's plenty of schools behind you that are above you and behind you, and the ones above you are going to take your best players. And of course, you've probably got some players you don't really want anymore. They've been panned out, so you'd like to see them move on and go somewhere else, maybe to one of those schools that are quote-unquote lower down the food chain and all that. Plenty of changes for Bronco. Here is Bronco with the media.
I think spring is really a discovery process. Every school, every place around the country, our players, they like contact. They like to be physical. They like to compete. And then the head coach's job is just to put it in a format based on injuries, and then trying to balancing enough younger players, holding out some older players, and trying to get really the right takeaways going into now the off season. But I like their intent. The team is really close in terms of their relationships and the culture and the alignment. So I think we've done a lot of really good work that way. Having said that, that just frames now with the amount of players that are new in programs in college football, it just frames the importance now of the next segment, which is the summer.
How much does it help to elevate your or evaluate your quarterbacks when you don't have the red jerseys on?
It's essential. I don't think you can tell really where your team is without seeing plays being finished, and that goes for quarterbacks as well. I think it's atypical for quarterbacks to be live in the spring, and yet when there is a quarterback competition and when there is an assessment to be made and to see where players really are, especially at that position, but really how valuable. They want the repetitions, our team wants it, and you really don't know where you are without it. And so I felt fortunate we were able to do that a few times this spring.
And it appears McKay seems to be the front runner at this point. Is that a fair assessment, or kind of where you feel like your depth is right now in your rotation of use of quarterback?
Yeah, most likely I'll make an announcement on Monday to add clarity to all that. And so we'll evaluate today's film. I'd always like our players to know first. And so before I share with anyone else the clarity of what I see and what we're going to do, so I'll let the guys know first. I have a team meeting Monday at 10, and an announcement could come as early as then, but I want them to know first, and I need a little more clarity from my staff.
How much of that is important to allow a guy to be the leader during the summer when he's leading a lot of those practices?
I think it's really important. The position, not only the technical and the tactical and the mechanics of playing it, yeah, that's necessary, but the leadership. And let's face it, there's a disproportionate value on that player and the outcome of seasons and games. And I think when a team can have a starting quarterback with the autonomy of the summer and what the NCAA structure requires, I think those teams progress the most and best, but I also think that player progresses the most and best when he has the certainty of what his role is going to be.
Offensively today, they didn't find the end zone very often. Is that more a function of how well your defense was doing, or just some things offensively just not quite clicking?
No, I think it's a mix. Again, it's spring. 4 scholarship offensive linemen out today, as well as holding out a few others. Defense is more experienced, and we're deeper, and didn't hold as many players out. So combination of those factors. From what I've seen throughout the spring, though, I'm not concerned. Today's reflection, that's kind of like maybe a micro reflection of what spring is. I'm just glad the fans could see us play football, and glad our players could have a chance to play football, and especially younger players get a chance to play a lot today. And that'll be great feedback for them. And sometimes not finding the end zone as frequently, especially if you're a skill player, that's great feedback as they meet with their coaches before our staff will be on the road Monday for spring recruiting. But that's great feedback. Sometimes the outcomes are necessary for people to really see where they are, and so that'll be helpful for some of the young skill guys offensively.
Coach Mendenhall, just what have you seen the last few weeks that has you thinking, has you optimistic for the upcoming season?
Just the alignment, the culture, the program, the consistency, and past experience. I know exactly what a good team in the spring looks like, and this is just kind of the next version of a team that has the capability to compete against anybody. So I look at our schedule, and I think the Pac-12 is very similar to the Mountain West a year ago. The parity is evident for sure, and that's including us. So I like our chances when there's parity, when then you get the cultural part and the mindset part that can differentiate, especially with the compounding effect of being in a place for a second year, not just starting it for the first year.
The offensive line, even with some guys out, what have you seen from the progression?
Lots of work still to do. We knew that from a year ago. Lots of holding penalties and lots of procedural things, so still a work in progress. The full unit really wasn't intact the entire spring. George Miley was out the entire spring, didn't get any repetition. So that's positive for young player development. Until then, 3 other players went out. And so really, we were able to piece together a front that allowed us to practice, but to say exactly where we are, too early to say, because I haven't seen the same guys play enough yet. However, most teams go as the offensive front goes. And the offensive front affects the quarterback play and vice versa. So that therein still lies something we have work to do on.
Is there a comfort level seeing Robert back in and having him coach side by side?
I don't know. Sometimes when we have player reunions and guys come back that, I don't know, they were 50 years ago they played here. That's an exaggeration. Maybe it's 30 years ago, and they see a teammate and they're calling them the same nickname and they're talking about the same stories. We were together 15 years, and so his time in Syracuse and NC State, my time in Montana coming back, it was like that was Monday and this is Tuesday. It feels like there wasn't any break at all.
Coach, in college basketball, it's really emphasized about NIL, money, players and such. How hard is it to recruit and bringing in players, because all the players from last year loved you as a coach, but also players want money? How do you find the balance in building relationships, but also trying to find a way to pay these players what they're asking for?
It's that is the college landscape right now, whether anyone likes it or not, that there is a monetary value per player at each position in college football. We lost one player a year ago that we wanted to stay that ended up leaving, and that monetary value, and man, it's striking sometimes, the differential between what some of the kids are offered, but let's just say it was between 5, 6, or 7 times greater than what our offer might have been. However, I think we're competitive in the Pac-12. I think we're fair. I think we're equitable, and I think the right players will come. And I think both Cam, our athletic director, Ike, and our supporters, they're doing a nice job to help us catch up in that regard. No matter what, my job is with the resources we have to maximize those resources and win. And so I'm not going to worry and complain. The reality is, right, players cost money now in college football. I love our NIL structure in football. It's, I think, different and atypical than the way anyone else is doing it. I think it helps teach the lessons, but there is an amount that's required. And so there's no way around that. My job is to maximize that, whatever it is, give a magical return on investment, and bring this program back to life. And that's as a champion, right? Not just as a bowl. Playing postseason is just the baseline, right? Championship football is what we all want, with amazing kids that represent this community at the highest level. And that part's happening at a really high level, as well as how well we're doing academically.
What do you think about, there's talk about eliminating conference championship games? We're already talking about, NCAA Oversight Committee is legitimately talking about changing the football calendar. But what do you feel about proposed changes, some conferences doing away with conference championship games.
Yeah, I'm for the elimination of a conference championship game, and I'm for moving up the start of football games, and I'm for the national championship happening in one semester. And it can happen. And so college championship games, man, does it make the playoff selection process murky and adds just another layer that we just played the entire season. And I mean, whoever won the conference. I don't think there needs to be another game prior to the playoffs, where it seems now, where the playoff seems to be where most people are chasing it. So again, I think starting earlier, eliminating the playoff or eliminating the conference championship games and moving up the national championship. If we believe in student athlete, and by the way, I don't get asked about academics very much from anybody. That means from recruits to families to media to boosters, right? And to me, it is valuable with the 2 highest semesters in school history academically for football. I mean, that matters to me. I think the calendar reflects that it really doesn't matter to many. And so I'd like to reclaim some of that space in terms of the development of young people. In terms of the coaching calendar, we were presented as Pac-12 coaches on a Zoom yesterday, a really unique and aggressive model that I won't talk about, but change is needed really in every way, shape, and form in college football, with actually then someone that can enforce it, which we currently don't have.
I'll ask you about academics, but in relation to the transfer portal, with where the portal was, with when Utah State starting their spring semesters, how was that for you managing that and getting players?
Yeah, it left a scar. So the transfer portal opened on Friday. We started school on Monday. There's not supposed to be any contact, direct or indirect, prior to that. And yet players are showing up with all their visits set, deals already brokered, monetary amounts already set, when it was supposed to be no contact. And by the way, we need players in school in 2 weeks. So we visited 44 players, signed 31 in 10 days. I mean, how in the world, 44 players in 10 days on 24-hour visits to sign 31? Most people date more than a 24-hour period, right? I mean, these official visits were 24 hours, and we have to be right, and they have to be right. How is that good for college football? Oh, and by the way, that costs money, and there's negotiations with agents that aren't certified. And how is that now smart business for anyone with a decision of this magnitude? And yeah, we're perfectly designed for the nonsense that we're getting. I love my team, and wow, you get right to the point when it's a 24-hour visit and you have 2 weeks to get kids into school that you don't even know. Wow. I don't know what to say about that.
Last question for me is just same question I asked the players. Like, spring practices are now done. Now what for you and your staff and for the players?
Spring recruiting. Our coaches, today's Saturday, the coaches are on the road Monday. So there's no break. Team meeting on Monday. Players have the month of May basically off in terms of optional voluntary. Summer school starts. So if they need a 14-week class, or there's 14 weeks for summer school, the first 7 weeks, the second 7 weeks, most of our players take the second 7 weeks. So they have the equivalent of 42 calendar days away from regulated, structured activities here. I think they're back May 31st, and then that will come up for air after the bowl game in December or January, with the team meeting being May 31st and workouts starting June 1st and straight through.
All right, there is Bronco Mendenhall. If you want more, I had a long conversation with Scott Gerard for the Ultimate Aggie podcast. Go to YouTube, KSLSports.com, wherever you get your podcasts. Search Ultimate Aggie Podcast. 20 to 30 minutes every week on the Aggies. This week, Scotty G talking with Bronco Mendenhall. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, PK and I are talking college football. That is next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. College football, it never really goes away, PK.
No, it don't, man. I was watching the man in blue, dark blue. They had their scrimmage. Michigan Wolverines had their scrimmage, and I was checking that out on the Big Ten network there. And yeah, we got everything done that we wanted to get done. And you know, I feel like you can go back to 2005, 2006, 2007. The one thing I did notice, he's being interviewed and his wife walked behind him, and it looked like it was maybe 40 degrees and a little drizzly and cloudy, and you know, and having extended family in Michigan and having been back there several times, that's what you're getting back there, man. Good weather's in short supply.
She just needs to keep an eye on the weather and be prepared. It's time to visit the grandkids. Yeah, it's 40 degrees warmer there. Let's go.
Yeah, they've got grandkids there. I think they got three.
They got grandkids there and here, so she just is.
Yeah.
Whichever grandkids have the best weather.
But it does. Life goes on, man. Change comes and change goes, and life goes on. Oh, blah dee blah da.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of people probably saw the video at Virginia Tech of the skydiver, and he hit the scoreboard, which is actually apparently separate from the stadium. It's another 30 yards or so off the end of the stadium, but it's huge, so you can't really tell right away, and there's a walkway underneath it, and it's a fairly dramatic video. The other news that came out of that, James Franklin really didn't seem to know much about it other than it looked terrifying. But he was talking about how he walked away from $40 million worth of buyout. He negotiated the buyout at Penn State was $49 million. He took it down to $9 million. He wasn't really interested in gifting him the $40 million, but he wanted to coach, and you can't put a price on some things. So he went to Virginia Tech where he was wanted and walked away from the $40 million. And just about the time you're thinking, like, how big can the money get? Since our show ended on Friday, Auburn announced a $320 million stadium renovation. Nebraska announced $600 million, and they're bonding for $350, but they raised $250 million. Now, you were just talking about your hockey writing days, PK, and those were in the 90s, which you realize is a long time ago. Well, yeah, that's the last time Nebraska was winning national titles. I mean, in the history of game, they're a big, big deal. But for the last generation, in the lifetime of these players, they are not a big deal. But how much you win isn't what schools are aligning. Right now, they're aligning around money right now. Money and the opportunity to make money, those two things. And, you know, we're all anticipating some type of realignment. Maybe it's major, maybe it's minor, but there's going to be something going on at the end of the decade when the TV deals are up. And it looks like everyone's aligning around money. And you look at Nebraska's a Big Ten school, Auburn's an SEC school. Those are the two leagues with the most money. I'm not convinced they're going to stay shoulder to shoulder. You know, we went from 6 to 5, from 5 to 4. We've really gone to 2, but at some point will we just go to one power league? I mean, that seems to be where we're trending. I don't know why we'd stop at 2. But the price tag to get into those two leagues and to compete in those two leagues is massive. I mean, I thought that Auburn story was huge, and then I saw the Nebraska story and thought, you raised $250 million and you're bonding for another $350. And they're building more luxury suiting, so they're expecting more people with big money to come in and buy these suites and buy these seats. And can our teams keep up with that? I mean, the price tag is huge, and I know we will not be outbid. We've heard that from BYU. We haven't heard that kind of dramatic talk from Utah. We've heard it from BYU. And mostly I've just believed it. Honestly, mostly I've just thought, well, you got enough billionaires and you'll do it. And then I see a $600 million price tag out of Nebraska, and I'm like, oh, will they really do it? I mean, that is just a pile of cash.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if it comes up, if it's of essentially an expansion fee to get on the other side and not be left out, I don't think that, certainly from the BYU perspective, that anybody will keep them out. If it's a money deal, they'll come up with the money. Those folks in and around the program will come up with the money. There's zero doubt in my mind that if that's the case. And all that other stuff, that is a form of investment, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you talk about, I like it, people in seats and suites. So that's, over time, the money that is outlaid will be recouped. Now you have to win. As far as that goes, you know, reading up on Jose Feliciano, the new about them, and his wife, two Princeton graduates who, that Princeton's in New Jersey, and that what they're going to do as private equity, and what the prior owner, who is deceased now, how he put in the money, and then the fans came flocking. I mean, not flocking is maybe an understated word. I mean, 42,000 Tuesday, 42,000 Saturday, 42,000 Sunday afternoon, 42,000. That is extremely impressive. And I don't care what the situation is. Oh, there's the Chargers left and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter to me. You're still winning and you're putting in 42,000. That is eye-opening. That's what it's about. And the way that thing has been run has been excellent. They haven't gotten to the World Series and blah, blah, blah. But they don't control that. That's stuff that goes out on the field. And so here, you're going to put out this money for this and that. If you put out the product and invest in a product, you will get the money back. I really believe that. I mean, you saw what the Utes did with the Garf South End Zone, right? A very impressive facility. And, I'm down there all the games, and that's where I usually stand. And that place looks pretty packed. If it gets out of hand, maybe in a late game, people take off. Or that ASU game when it was raining like a mother, but we're concerned about this player safety, and so we'll have them play in tornadoes and hurricanes. Because we got to keep the TV window. That's a joke. Don't tell me you're concerned about the TV window, and if the players have to play in lousy conditions, so be it. We're not going to mess up the TV window because that's where the money is. Always, under every circumstance, follow the money, and that'll lead you to the reasons behind decisions. And that's why there should have been no way, not to say that the ASU would have won the game. That's not the point. But that people had to play in those conditions, yeah, that's ridiculous. But if you win and put the product out on the field, you'll get that money back, and I think you'll get it back tenfold. And that's what we're going to continue to see. And I don't know that it's going to go back. I don't see where it's going to go back. I just wonder, in 10 years, are we going to hear, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is the wild, wild west. This is unsustainable. It's okay, it can fly now because it's relatively brand new, right? Mm-hmm. But as each year goes by, we're all guys like me who wake up. How can I be the most cynical person I can be today? And there's a million of guys like me who are gonna follow, and they're gonna say this is a joke. We can't keep saying what we can't keep saying is keep saying that it's unsustainable as we go to year 5, to year 6, and then the year 10, and so forth. Right? At some point, it's going to be sustainable, and the only thing is we're going to keep saying it's unsustainable. But right now, the facts and the metrics show, as crazy as it is, it's sustainable. It's crazily sustainable. How about that?
But is the answer it's sustainable there, but it's not sustainable here? There being Auburn or Nebraska.
But that's always been that way, man. Oregon with the old man's money. And
I know, but these schools
are sustainable.
But these schools are dreaming of playing at the highest level. The Utes got a taste of it with those back-to-back Rose Bowls and the 4 Pac-12 title games. BYU wants it too. And they got to catch up. And you got to catch up to people who are accelerating.
They always had to catch up to people.
Nebraska and Auburn are not on top of their game. Like if Michigan and Ohio State and Oregon generate a ton of cash, or Texas, well, they've had recent success. Auburn hasn't had success in a decade. Nebraska hasn't had that kind of success in more than 2 decades.
So?
But they're finding a way to accelerate.
Right.
So can these guys accelerate and keep up with them? Because I think you're right. I think the most likely scenario is that right now everybody's saying it's not sustainable, but we're going to find out it is sustainable at 20 or 30 or 40 schools. But those schools include,
how is that any different?
Will those schools include our schools? Well, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, I don't think these schools here dreamed of competing at that level.
What
now
schools?
I think they do, but to make it a reality.
What schools? Our schools you're talking about?
Yeah, Utah and BYU did not.
But BYU won the national championship in '84. They thought they were playing at that level. Even if they weren't, they thought they were.
And then when the sport accelerated, they didn't think they were anymore.
Oh, I don't know about that. In '96, I think they did. And in Utah, in 2008, Kyle's saying we could play anybody. I'm voting us to be the national champion. And they thought they could. And they're putting more than half of their defense got drafted and played in the NFL. I mean, what more metric do you want than how many guys go to the NFL? Yeah, I thought they thought they could. It may be foolish. I had fans that, and this is just anecdotal, so it's not like it's conclusive proof, but I kept telling them, stay in your lane here, man. You got a really good program, but you're not on that level. And they think that they were. And then they got slapped into reality, but says, you get slapped down, you get back up, and away you go.
But the line was blurrier. That was an era when BYU won the national title.
2 years ago.
That was an era when you could still play a Big Ten team in a bowl game, and they are just pulling away. And the thing is that Kyle has told us, and he's been right so many times when he said this stuff, there's going to be a major line draw. There's going to be this separation. Before, it was kind of blurry. Even though you weren't in their league, you could kind of compete with them, and you could point at 84 or 2008 or whatever else.
You don't think that BYU and Utah are going to think that we can compete with Rutgers and Purdue and Maryland at any time? And Illinois, the list goes on. I can name you 10, 15, 20 teams that are over on the other side that they think that they can compete with. You don't think Texas Tech is thinking that, and Dillingham down in Tempe is thinking that they went toe-to-toe and lost by an inch to Texas. And so, I don't see it. I don't see where anything is changing in that way. There's always going to be the teams that are for sure. The teams that are for sure that are halves, it's like Ohio State and, Georgia, right? Yeah. And Alabama. Well, Alabama's had a coaching change, and so how's that going to play out? They sure did okay this year. Miami thinks they can change. Miami hasn't had the success that they had under Jimmy Johnson in a long while, but they still think that they're capable of competing. And the money is going to take the upsets out of it, of Cinderella upsets of Appalachian State beating Michigan, but that was such a few and far between type of thing. I really don't see the competitive balance changing. What can be done to change is if you get a Cody Campbell and he says, I'm going to put in whatever it takes. But that's already been done. We already have the history with Phil Knight doing the exact same thing of when we were kids. You got Oregon as a road game? Sweet. That means I don't have to worry about going up there and getting a road win because they suck. Well, now he put in all that money, and it's been a whole generation of people who think Oregon is a really good football program. And in 15 years, in 20 years, there's going to be a whole generation of Texas Tech, even though they've won their first outright title ever, 80 years. I don't see where that's any different. If you flush the program with tons of money, you too can compete.
So do you think Kyle's right and there's going to be some big separation here at the end of the decade and some big realignment around money? Because if there isn't, then that scenario you say, you're always, you're $1 billionaire away. And it's happened all over the country. Teams that have been down have gotten a big injection of money. Oklahoma State had T. Boone Pickens when he was alive, and they followed the Oregon model to a T. And Texas Tech is following the model.
To a T-Boone.
To a T-Boone, right. And you've still got access to the playoffs, so you've still got access. You can do it. It isn't a complete separation where we're playing at a different level and you're just you're not even in the swimming pool
But I think
anymore.
That's already been the case. Was Oregon State playing at the same level as Oregon? Was the U of A? In basketball, yes, because that's where they put most of their money, and that's where they're going to continue to do it. And so they've been able to be really good in basketball. But in football, you have the occasionals. That's why Dillingham talks a good game, and I give him credit for doing all that. But until I see them competing 5 out of 7 years at a high level, they what they did 2 years ago, they've done that before. It's about, can you sustain it? You can strike gold occasionally. That's happened. It's football, man. It's hard to see these stars don't always pan out. We've seen it over and over again. So you can get that occasionally, but can you do it consistently? That's what remains to be seen. And then I think that my instinct says that, sure, the SEC and the Big Ten, in a sense, have already broken away. The Big Ten's going to tell you we've broken away. We dominated in basketball. We dominated in football. What more domination do you want? And so in their minds, they've already broken away. But then you're going to get the political people involved, and so you're not going to have that it's just going to be 25, 30, 40 teams. What's going to happen to Kansas State? they deserve to be left out? No, they don't deserve to be left out. So they'll have some form of access in the manner that we had James Madison and Tulane get in this year, right? So then down the road, we'll have Kansas State and Arizona. If they don't get across the line, those types will have access to whatever creation they come up in the next decade when TV puts a massive influence upon it now. We already had James Madison and Tulane. You're telling me we're not going to have Arizona State and Texas Tech have opportunities? BYU, Utah, if they shouldn't get in? And they have good histories. They send people to the pros. They've got sellouts all the time. I don't buy it.
As this money accelerates, it will be interesting to see if it's Auburn and Nebraska where there's no pro sports competition. Even Texas Tech is geographically removed from Houston, Dallas, even San Antonio and Austin.
It's 300 miles away from Dallas.
I know. And so here, Utah and BYU are competing with the NBA and the NHL, and ASU is competing with the NFL and Major League Baseball and the NBA. Be interesting to see if that turns out to be a big old disadvantage with the money in town.
Well, I mean, hasn't that already been that way?
It has to a degree. Probably Michigan is an example of somebody who's overcome that right in the shadow of Detroit.
Yeah, but the Lions have sucked forever.
They have. But they have all four there, and the Red Wings had a great run, and the Tigers won World Series.
Well, the good thing about Michigan from that perspective is they've got literally since the dawn of time of the sport to create all this enormous momentum.
Right.
And I don't think that that's going to change. They can create 10 new major league sports teams, whatever, and put them there.
Go back to fielding Yost in 1900 and whatever.
Right. And so they've got such a head start that they could withstand that.
Still ahead, the NHL playoffs. Game 1 goes to the Vegas Golden Knights. They come from behind to beat the Utah Mammoth. We talk with Jay Stevens about it. That's coming up next. Stay with us. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. The Utah Mammoth are in the playoffs. They got Game 2 tonight in Las Vegas. Mike Folta, radio play-by-play voice, is going to join us coming up at 9:30. But Jay Stevens joined us late in yesterday's show, and we'll let you listen in on our conversation with him. Here's Jay with PK and I.
Watching the game, I'm wondering, the start, first period and into the second, but especially the first, it seemed like that Vegas was trying to send a message, we're going to be tougher and rough you up. Did you get that sense?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Vegas was very eager to welcome Utah to playoff hockey. They made sure that it was physical. On the end of the night, Vegas had 52 hits. Utah had 30. So there was just that part of the game. But I also liked, we talking about the first period and playing your game. Utah looked really good at the beginning of that game. And I think maybe even 40 of the 60 minutes, I thought Utah was the better offensive-looking team. I think they had more chances in their building, which is always a big thing. I thought they created more opportunity, but they definitely took the brunt of Vegas's physicality.
Vegas has to do that, don't they? Isn't Utah the quicker, faster team? And if it just comes down to speed, then it's going to be advantage Mammoth. So Vegas has to do this, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. That's Vegas's game. They're big. They're physical. Even their skill guys, Mark Stone and Tomas Hertl, they're big and they can play a physical game. So that's what they're built for. Teams like that are built for playoff hockey, and they have to do something to shut down the speed. Utah has the speed. Utah has more depth. I mean, having 6 20-goal scorers on your roster across all 4 lines is hard to compete against for most teams. So seeing Utah try to figure out the physicality, but yeah, that's the only way Vegas is going to try to match that speed is to shut it down, clog up the neutral zone, make the offensive zone really muddy for Utah, try to just use physicality and pin everybody against the boards and keep them out of the middle.
Do you think Nick Dowd really wants to kill Cooley?
I think during playoffs, everybody wants to kill everybody. And, man, what a huge pickup for Vegas, picking up Dowd at the trade deadline. I mean, he was definitely noticeable last night.
Do you think, and they were putting up all this stuff on experience, all the graphics and all that, and it felt like the Mammoth ratcheted up their game and matched it for 2 periods, and the Vegas was able to double down a third time. How much is that emotion? How much is that emotion sustainable? And can Vegas bring that level again? Or is this something we're going to see cranked up game to game, and it's actually going to get more intense with each passing game? Like how I felt like the Mammoth raised the bar. I just wonder how much more they have to raise it.
Yeah, they're going to have to raise it a little bit, and you're nailing those things right on. I mean, Vegas did what they were supposed to do. I thought Utah came out and controlled their emotions pretty well. I mean, they looked great in that first 15 minutes of the first period. What really shifted it was that penalty. And the penalty kill for Utah, which struggled just a little bit, but Vegas had one of the top. They're one of the only teams in the league that they were in the top 10 for power play and penalty kill. So you knew it had to stay out of the box for Utah to win. And Utah kind of fell into that trap of falling for Vegas's shots after the whistle, little kidney punches here and there, and Utah needs to learn to, you can get involved in those scrums and you can stick up for each other, but you can't do something that crosses the line and puts your team down a guy, because one penalty, one power play goal against. That's all it really took to take the momentum away from Utah. So you're going to see more emotion. You've got guys that were just punching each other in the face 2 nights ago. They're going to be sore from that punch when the game starts tomorrow night, right? So there are going to be some grudges. There's going to be some hurt feelings. Expect the emotion, the physicality, and the intensity to go up even another level.
And that's a fine line, Jay, is what you're saying there, because I can appreciate that. And at the same time, you don't want to get out of what you do and what you're capable of doing and what got you to this point. So how do you think they handle that?
Yeah, and that's what Bear was saying. Like, they knew they had to increase their physicality, but they can't forget how they got to the playoffs. And that's by keeping their head, playing their system. I think Utah in the third period, even when it was tied, and then again when they went down a goal, they didn't change from, like, you still saw them get really good scoring opportunities. I thought it was unfortunate the turnover happened right when they were pulling Veggie out of the net to give him the empty netter, because I think if you would have seen Utah get some structure and some offensive zone time right there with the extra attacker, I think you were going to see a real good push. You ended up seeing some pretty good scoring opportunities anyway. But that's the key, is Utah has to play physical. It has to be more than just, that fourth line throwing their body around. Krause led the team. I think he had 9 hits. The second closest to that was 3. Everybody's got to learn to finish every check. If somebody on the other team has the puck or touches the puck, they have to be hit. That's just the rule of playoff hockey. You have to play physical, but at the same time, you hit the person and you skate away from it, and you just send that message that I'm here to play physical, but I'm not here to play stupid. And that's been Utah hockey. They stay away from the bull crap most of the time, and they did a much better job the second half of the season of not taking those retaliatory penalties. And they just got to continue that through the next game of the playoffs.
We can analyze everything. We can nitpick everything. But how much does everything change if Schmidt scores? Because they had a great sequence there. They got him a ton of space on the ice. I mean, he's just walking. He's got the whole goal to shoot at. And it looked like Hart saved that shot with his right collarbone. I'm not sure he could do that again. Next time that thing goes in, it's 3-3. And then maybe it's completely different. So how much of it is just keep plugging away, because this is a sport where a bounce or two goes your way and everything changes?
Yeah, that's 100% it. It's a game of inches and a game of who's going to make the fewest mistakes more than it is who's going to play the best, right? That's how goals are scored, or off little mistakes or a half an inch there. You saw Stenlund's goal was a pretty creative way to score a goal off somebody's jaw. But it's if you tie that game right there, and there was a couple times, I think Gunther got in alone too. Mm-hmm. And Cooley made those amazing moves that would have given him a 2-goal cushion too when he got through, and he got Paul Bunyan the whole way to the net, but he made it to the net. So yeah, a little thing like that changes the whole buildup of the game. If you're tied back up, Utah, I think, takes back over the game, or if they could have got that 2-goal cushion, I think you would have seen a lot more offensive styling, and I think Utah could have played a little more freely.
Given the lack of playoff experience, does the first game, the way it played out and the result, how much does it surprise you, if at all?
I think what surprised me the most is how well Utah handled it. Like I said, that power play goal really kind of took them off the tracks. But until then, I thought Utah was controlling the play. They seemed to be fine getting physical You have Cooley going after guys. You got Sergachev going after guys. So I think that's what surprised me the most is that the inexperience didn't really show up to me. I thought they played a really good game. I thought this was a great playoff game. It felt more like a 4 versus 5 than a Pacific Division champion playing a wild card spot. I think Utah proved to everybody that they belonged to be there. Everybody in Vegas thought Vegas was going to lose the first game. And I think for me, that was what I saw the most. I saw a pretty composed team that was getting involved in physicality. And maybe for the first time, I think going into the game, I think Cooley had maybe 11 hits on the season and Keller had like 9. So they're going to have to increase that physicality. But other than that, I was actually really impressed with Utah's game. And, yeah, it came down to just a couple lucky bounces. And really surprising that they called a hooking penalty with all the physicality that was going on. And I didn't think that hook from Kerfoot affected the play at all. I saw a lot of hooks like that and cross checks that were being let go. So I'm really surprised it came down to that kind of a play with such a physical and emotional game. But Utah seems ready, and I think we're going to see a better performance in Game 2.
One thing for them, I think, to lean into, I thought the passing was really crisp there in Game 1. The passing that set up the first goal was really good, and you've already talked about some of those other chances. Again, it was, the spacing, the vision, the passing, it just seemed like sometimes you guys need like a second touch. They don't quite, I don't know if they're taking the eye off the puck or whatever. You can't be on point all the time. But it seemed really crisp last night. That seems like an advantage for them and something that could create a little offense where it was a little lacking in Game 1.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we talk about all the time. Utah's fast. We talk about Utah's speed all the time, and you assume that they're just talking about how fast they can skate. But it's the decision-making and the passing and those one-touch passes. I mean, those guys are thinking circles around a lot of the defenders on the ice. They're that creative, and you could see it building up before that first goal. You saw Utah get back to they got in the offensive zone. They set up. They made that cross ice pass for that one timer. That's Utah hockey, and it took to that point to actually see Utah get back to their form. The other thing Utah didn't do that they did a lot and had success against on Vegas is doing a dump and chase on one of the bottom 2D for Vegas, knowing when those two are on the ice, making sure you're doing that dump and chase, getting back to that kind of style, make those guys turn, chase the puck, and then punish them when they touch it. So those are those things. You're absolutely right. In the playoffs, those crisp passes mean everything because there's just no open ice. The minute the puck's on your stick, somebody else's stick is on your stick. So you've got to be quick with that pass. You got to spread the ice out a little bit more. Vegas did a good job of clogging up the middle in the third period and trying to cut off those passing lanes. But I think that's what you'll see. I think Utah, they all have experience now. They all have playoff experience. That was the other night, and now you're gonna see them get back to their game, be who they were, make those stretch passes and those clean, crisp passes through the neutral zone, and hopefully better breakouts. That was the other thing that kind of fell apart, was breaking out of the zone.
So far, it looks like Vegas' decision to change coaches is one of the best decisions the franchise has ever made. How do you explain this great run they've been on since they got Tortella in there?
Yeah, it's funny, and I said it a few times. I don't know if a lot of people agree with me or not, but typically when you have a coaching change, you do have a little bit of a run, 5 or 6 game win, something like that, right? I don't know what it is that changes. But they're giving Torch too much credit in my book, because the other thing that happened the exact same time is they got Carter Hart back from injury.
Yeah.
Who he played at the beginning of the season and then missed a ton of the season.
Right.
And Vegas was really down on Aiden Hill. He wasn't playing great. He was at an 88% save average. Here comes Carter Hart at the exact same time they fired their coach, and I think that stabilized the team. Does Torch deserve some credit? Absolutely. I don't think he changed the lines. I don't think he changed the system. I don't think he changed a lot of stuff that went on. I think the biggest thing that happened is that you've got Carter Hart back in the net, and he's a phenomenal goaltender.
So what do you expect to see in Game 2 out of the gate?
A lot of physicality and Utah needs to take the game to Vegas kind of the same way they did in Game 1. I expect to see Utah trying to use better passing. You might see some changes in the lineups. I was really surprised to see McBain on line 4. I think he's better with Kerfoot, so I think you'll see some line changes possibly. Put McBain into line 3 and maybe move Carcone down. But there's got to be a little bit of an adaptation to make sure that you've got scoring power on all 4 lines and physicality on 4 lines. You know, it's funny that besides Lawson Krause and his 9 hits, some of the top hitters were Brandon Tanev and Kerfoot and Carcone, who are barely 6 feet tall. Our smallest guys are throwing the most hits. So I think the rest of the lines need to throw more hits. You need to see Cooley throwing more hits. You need to see Keller and Schmaltz throwing more hits. So that's what I think you'll see, the increased physicality. And I'd really love to say that Bear's going to rein them in on the stuff after the whistle, but that's hard to do when the emotions are in there and everybody's so competitive. But I think you'll see Utah try to get back to their run-and-gun game and really take that to Vegas, because Vegas cannot keep up with Utah's speed.
All right, there's Jay Stevens. More on the Mammoth coming up with Mike Folta at 9:30. Also, Brian Dunseth talking about Messi coming to Salt Lake. We will talk with Brian Dunseth about the RSL Miami game coming up Wednesday night. And Steve Cleveland will be here at 8 o'clock talking NBA playoffs. What is trending? The headlines are coming up next. Stay with us.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.